I'm Sean Bukowski, Bukowski Law Firm, and this is how to lower your tax bill without having to wait until next year. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. So if, you can either raise a hand or put something in the chat real quick that you can hear me coming through loud and clear. Appreciate that. So hopefully that's coming through. Everybody good? Good. Thank you. We're going to talk about property taxes today. It'll be about 30 minutes or so for my talk, and then we'll open it up to Q&A at the end. And we're going to talk about how to lower your property taxes this year, regardless of whether you've had your formal hearing already or not, without having to wait until next year. So what we'll talk about, what we'll discover here in our talk, formal hearings that you've probably been through your formal hearings, some of you already, they can go poorly, unfortunately, sometimes. And we're here to talk about today that doesn't need to be the end. Doesn't have to be the last step. There's always a lawsuit afterwards that you can do. And that's what we're going to talk about, is how lawsuits can be successful and against the tax appraisal district, and how they don't have to be a major hurdle in getting your assessed values lowered. So who should be on this? This is for you for a couple of reasons. If you're a property investor, you know this already. Property taxes in Texas are a major hurdle to the success of your investment. And that's a big issue. It continues in our environment. Your property taxes continue to rise. And so it can be frustrating, as I know I'm frustrated with every year getting higher tax appraised values. Formal hearings don't always go the way you want. We're here to you if you don't want that to be the last step. There's another step for you to discover. And that is, when you think about what is the sort of ideal solution here, if you could wave your sort of magic wand and what would be the ideal solution, and obviously theoretically that's not to have any taxes, but that's highly unlikely and not going to happen in Texas. But if you can get that tax bill reduced significantly so that you really preserve that IRR on your deal, and the cash flow increases, that is really your ideal outcome and solution. And that's what we are here to try to discuss, to see if we can get to that point. Who am I? Who the heck is this guy? This good-looking guy here? That's me. I have been a lawyer since 2001, and I think my sort of story is pretty common for a sort of American kid growing up, in that I read To Kill a Mockingbird, and it had a huge effect on me. Atticus Finch just stood for justice, and that was what I wanted to do, was to provide justice, especially for the sort of underprivileged or person that really needed it. And that all sounds great, and then you go to law school, and law school is really expensive. And so as a result, I came out in 2001 and I worked for a big firm. And then in 2006, just kind of stumbled into it by happenstance into real estate. And it was just a fantastic move for us, because that was when I started, I guess a few years later, in 2010, I started Bukowski Law Firm. This is Steve. He's our Chief Morale Officer for Bukowski Law Firm. He comes into the office and keeps our head on straight. But like I said, I'm really to have stumbled into real estate because I love it. I love it so much. And the reason I love it is because, as I'm sure you guys all know and feel, that being in real estate and development and investment, you can have such a profound effect on the development of a city and how a city evolves. And I just love that aspect, that you can create these wonderful places to live and work and play that really can transform cities and neighborhoods. And that really gets me excited. And I am a real estate investor myself. I have a real estate investment company. And I know from that perspective, and I know from my client's perspective, how important property taxes are and how they can ruin an investment. And that's what gets me fired up. As I said, I've been doing this for about 2006. This is a client of ours, has a very, well, back in 2006, now a big developer. And I hope that we at Bukowski Law Firm, we've had a little bit of a hand in helping them grow. So what are we here for? Talk about bad outcomes in formal hearings and why that doesn't have to be the last step. So what we're going to talk about, what you'll discover hopefully in this 30 minutes or so, is that panels, when you get to our panel, they don't always come out the way you want. And the reason, there's many reasons they are, but frankly, sometimes they just make the wrong decision and they just make errors. And so that happens more often, unfortunately, than we think. And it's really important to know that that doesn't have to be the last step. You can be successful with a lawsuit against an appraisal district. And it doesn't hard as the property owner. Excuse me. You can survive these lawsuits and go through these lawsuits and settle them with not a ton of effort on your part. So let's talk about the first step. Panels, sometimes it happens. We see this all the time, and there's a number of reasons. One, panels work with the district every day, all day. And so they get to know them. I apologize. They get to know them and they trust them. And so they'll see the analysis that the appraisal district does, and it's just sort of human nature that because they know them and see them every day, that they kind of the appraisal district sometimes. They are science, of course, but they're also a little bit of art, and how you compare two properties, how you get caps, how you account for vacancy. That's all up to some judgment. And too often the appraisal or the panels will just accept the appraisal district's methodology and their judgment. And that's something that we're constantly fighting. And so as a result, there's sometimes they get it wrong, and we need to continue to fight against that. I want to give you a little bit of a sort of, excuse me, I have an issue here. They want to give you a little bit of how one of our cases went. This was probably favorite property tax case, in that it was about 3 years ago. We had a client who purchased a multifamily home or complex on December 30th. And as I'm sure you know, the appraisal values are set on December 31st. And so, and this as a side, when you're protesting your property taxes, I'm sure you probably know this, but please make sure you check two boxes. One, as the market value is incorrect, and also that the equal and uniform analysis is incorrect. It's really important to check both of those, and you'll see why here. The market value, the property was purchased on December 30th, and there was, for market value, there wasn't a lot we could do. They understood the purchase price, and so that was what they were offering. And so I asked this was in our informal hearing, I asked the appraisal district, okay, well, what is your equal and uniform analysis? And reluctantly, he gave it to me, and it was like $3 million less than what the market value analysis was. And I said, okay, well, we'll settle for that equal and uniform. And even though they were supposed to take the lower of the two values, he said, no, I can't give you that. So what did we do? We said, okay, well, we're going to formal hearing. And at that formal hearing, the appraisal district was not going to present their equal and uniform analysis to the panel. And the panel would have just gone forward with, the market value. But we literally took the appraisal district's equal and uniform analysis and showed it to the panel and said, here's our value. We want this. And this is a good result. We were able to get that that equal and uniform analysis lowered. But I think it kind of goes to show you how these panels can kind of go awry. And if we wouldn't have had that informal hearing and gotten their equal and uniform analysis from the appraisal district, they wouldn't have presented it to the panel, would get the property tax lowered. So what does it mean when, for you guys then, when you have these bad panels? Well, it happens, but don't let it be the final say. Don't let them, the panelists, have the final step, because there's always another step, and that step is filing a lawsuit, and that you can still go to the next step and get your appraised value lowered. We have another client of ours here that we file, I don't know, I'd guess maybe half of his properties that we protest for, we do lawsuits for, and it's fairly simple for him. And we'll talk about that later, but the process is not that complicated, and so we're able to file lawsuits on his behalf for a number of them. So let's talk about those lawsuits. Good success doing these lawsuits, and it's a fairly straightforward process. Doesn't require a lot on your part, and it's really it can take a while. That is one effort, but for the most part, these are lawsuits that we work with pretty minimal discovery, and can get them resolved. Usually, our settlement rate is really high. Most settlement rates, not just ours, and property tax lawsuits are very high, and it doesn't require, like I said, a lot of effort on your part. I'll give you an example. This was something that, one thing that can happen is you have to be patient, because these lawsuits, they can take a while. And this was down in Bexar County, this example. We had a board hearing is multifamily property in 2018 and didn't get the result we want. And it was a large property, so they really needed a large reduction, and we didn't get that at the hearing, and so we filed a lawsuit. And even when we filed that lawsuit, we just couldn't get them to the appraisal district to really negotiate with us and come to the table. And so it was 6-8 months and still not really getting anywhere. And so we had this 2019 formal hearing coming up, and we went to that hearing, and again didn't get the result we wanted. And so what we did was we just amended the 2018 petition to add the 2019. And when we did that, we were able to get Bexar County to move a little bit more when they saw that they could resolve 2 years worth of claims that helped them move. So these lawsuits, they can be, the one thing I'll say is they can be slow. They can be quick sometimes, but they can be slow. But they're pretty effective in getting the values reduced. Obviously, that's not a guarantee, but you can have a fair amount of success. So, what does that mean for you? What do you need to do? This is really important. Act quickly, because you may know this, like once you have the formal hearing, you're on a time frame at that point on how long you can file your lawsuit. And generally it's 60 days from when you get notice. It can be potentially shorter from that, but you're on it's a pretty quick time frame from when you can file your lawsuit. So don't delay on this, because it really is important to get that filed sooner rather than later. Alluded to this already, but these lawsuits, the good thing about them is they're a little bit different than a lot of lawsuits in that they generally, we've been able to, first of all, there's a very high settlement rate. So we get, we settled most of these without going to trial. And they generally are done with minimal discovery. And so that really is a pretty minimal work on your part. if it actually goes to trial, then of course there's going to be discovery and depositions and experts. But for the most part, we've been able to settle these with just negotiations with the appraisal district after we present our analysis to them, of course. And I can kind of give you an example of that, which is this was, I think, in 17, maybe 18. But it's happened since then a fair amount, in that we had a lawsuit. We went to the panel. We had really good evidence that the panel just really didn't pay a lot of attention to, in my opinion. And so we went to the panel, didn't get a good result, filed the lawsuit. As soon as the appraisal district answered the lawsuit, we sent them a settlement letter. And the settlement offer letter, of course, has all of our analysis and why our evidence is strong. I guess, is the Zoom breaking up? You guys having problems? I apologize for that. Hopefully it'll stay okay. But anyway, so we sent a settlement letter right after we got their answer, and honestly, they agreed with our analysis, and we were that with about a month. It doesn't always happen like that, but that is our strategy: is to get these settled quickly without having much discovery or expense on your part. So what do you need to do? Consult with your attorney. As soon as you get the panel hearing, consult with your attorney and talk about what you need to do, whether you need to file a lawsuit. It's going to require you to turn over your financials and information, but that's something you normally do with your tax protester anyway. And then your attorney can go forward and see what you need to do. This is another client of ours, and he kind of talks about how these lawsuits, they don't require a lot of work on your part. And so, if you don't get a good result, we really strongly recommend filing a lawsuit because it generally won't take a lot of work. So let's kind of recap what we talked about. The three things that panels are wrong. It happens a lot, but they don't have to be the final step. You can file lawsuits and go forward and try to get a tax reduction. And those lawsuits don't have to be stressful. And the tax reduction is still very possible, even after a bad panel hearing. So that's really the key to this whole sort of webinar, which is the formal hearing doesn't have to be the last step. Those guys make errors. You can still file a lawsuit and hopefully get your property taxes reduced with really minimal effort on your part. And that's why we call it how to lower your bill. So how it works with us. First of all, we're going to have a 30-minute meeting, 30-minute consult. And in that meeting, what we're going to do is talk about your property. What do you need? What are you looking at? What do we need to look out for? What were your results? And what is your analysis? What evidence do we have that the results should have been lower? And this is the key. This is really important, which is to ask what outcome you are looking for and you're trying to be happy with. Because if we can't come to an agreement on what is a realistic outcome and if you'd be happy with it, then there's no point in going forward because neither of us are going to get to what we want. So that's really an important thing. No matter whether you're meeting with us or with any other lawyer, make sure you define what is really important. What is your goal in the lawsuit to make sure you have that we can meet those goals. And then we'll answer the questions you have so that at the end of our 30-minute meeting or so, you'll know whether you should file a lawsuit, whether it would be beneficial for you to file a lawsuit. You'll understand the requirements for the time requirements and what it's going to require of you in general, and then have a target outcome in time. And those things will help you to make the decision whether you want to hire us or somebody else. And then once you make that decision, you give us your property information and we'll start the process, which sounds easy, right? But of course, there's a catch. What's the catch? I can't stress this enough. You really have a limited amount of time. And so you want to make sure that you get your hearing results. As soon as you get your hearing results, you meet with your attorney so that you can figure out whether it makes sense to file a lawsuit. Because like I said, probably at max 60 days, it could be shorter, but don't delay on that amount so that you can go forward and make that determination. We're happy to help. Well, we'd love to talk to you about if you're having issues. Talk to you and call us or go to our website for a consultation. We do these cases. We do, I don't know how many we do. We do probably 75, 80 lawsuits every year, or at least this year. And we do them all on a contingency. So if you come with us, you don't pay anything if we don't get your tax bill reduced. And if you do, our fee will be based on the amount of tax reduction. So we'll get a percentage of that. So like I said, it's basically there's almost no risk to you in filing one of these lawsuits. Again, that's to get a consultation, go to our website or give us a call. And remember, when you meet with us, you're going to know these three things, which are really important. These are really important to know after you have gone through your formal hearing, whether you should file a lawsuit, how much time it's going to take you, and what your target outcome is. And I really want to stress how important it is to have that third number in mind, because you got to know if what you're hoping for is realistic and if it makes sense to go forward. And in a nutshell, that's kind of how we can, lower your tax bill this year without having to wait until next year. I'm understanding that I guess there were some internet issues. I apologize for that. Does anybody want to either talk about that or have questions or something along those lines? I don't know where. Is there a chat, Alan? There it is. Guys, I guess the internet issues were really bad. Is that right? People couldn't hear. So the question was, what's the best way to determine an appropriate goal for a particular appeal? I think from a business perspective, you have to know what you need to help with your billing, or your investment. So you've undoubtedly targeted taxes or modeled taxes at some point in your investment, and so I would say talk to your lawyer about what that target goal is, and then your lawyer can look at do his analysis, and we can determine whether that target goal is realistic. And what we'll do is we'll have a conversation. Does that make sense? Does what your target goal is from your financials make sense with what we think we can get to? And so it's kind of a discussion between us and you to figure out what that target goal should be. Okay, guys. Well, I apologize for video reception. Maybe we'll do this again in a couple of weeks, and it'll come out better if the video didn't record well. And I'll do it from another locale. Hopefully, that will come out better. So, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Vicky, I just saw your question. The question is, you're an out-of-state investor, with all the new businesses moving to Austin, and with how many people are moving to Austin, it seems that prices will be rising rapidly. You know, prices have been rising rapidly in the last couple of years. I think with COVID, there's at least some uncertainty in the market right now. The single family housing market really up and up hot, very hot right now, and is continuing to rise. Some of the other asset classes, multifamily, retail, hospitality, it's difficult to know what's going to happen, and I think you could see some distressed assets out there in the next 6 to 9 months, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with appraised values next year when the appraised values come out, because how will COVID affect that? You know, as we have talked about, the appraised value date is December 31st, and so what will the world look like on December 31st? I'm not sure we know. And then how will COVID affect the year's earnings? Will certainly affect what the appraised value should be. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. So this is, again, I apologize for the issues with the Wi-Fi. We are recording this, and it'll be up on the site soon. Hopefully it recorded well. The website is bukowskilawfirm.com, BUKOWSKI lawfirm.com, and we'll email the link to you guys shortly after, so that hopefully it'll become clear, with the recording will be clearer on that. Okay, unless there's anything else, again, thank you guys. Really appreciate you taking the time, and we'll get this up on the website shortly. Thank you very much.